Trong chiếc video này, chúng ta sẽ đi tham quan, thăm thú một chút, tìm hiểu một chút về hồ Loch Ness. Loch ở đây theo tiếng của người Scotland là lake. Về cơ bản là tên cái hồ này là Ness. Cũng vì thế nên là người ta đặt tên con quái vật ở đây là Nessie. Tất nhiên là chưa có confirm nào là quái vật có thật hay không. Trước tiên chúng ta hãy xem là chiếc hồ này đẹp và rộng bao la đến như nào. Đằng xa kia là lâu đài Urquhart, thực ra là một tàn tích cổ. Đây là một điểm đến rất là phổ biến cho các du khách. Và thực ra là đối với những người không có xe ô tô thì đây có thể là điểm đến duy nhất. Đây sẽ là một nơi mà có thể ngắm được toàn bộ hồ, một nơi đẹp nhất để ngắm. Nên là tôi nghĩ nếu các bạn đến đây và muốn ngắm cảnh thì đây sẽ là một điểm đến khá là đáng, ngắm nhìn toàn bộ hồ Loch Ness. Có một fact thú vị là hồ Loch Ness không phải là hồ sâu nhất hay rộng nhất của Scotland, nhưng lại là hồ chứa nhiều nước hơn tất cả các hồ Anh và Wales cộng lại. Một fact nữa về hồ là hồ có một lượng lớn than bùn rất là cao từ các khu vực núi xung quanh đổ về, nên vì vậy chúng ta chỉ có thể nhìn được tối đa 1 đến 2 mét dưới mặt nước. Nhiệt độ nước hồ thì luôn duy trì ở mức tầm 5 độ C và độ sâu trung bình thì tầm 130 mét, nên vì vậy không có ai dám bơi hay là dùng đi thuyền nhỏ ở đây cả. Nhưng mà có lẽ để tiếp nối chương trình thì tôi sẽ chi 16 bảng để Loch Ness Hotel Drama Rocket dưới tả thêm cho các bạn về hồ Loch Ness và chuyến hành trình đi tìm Nessie. What's up?
Loch Ness. Stand here at dawn, and it feels like a place of wonders. The kind of place where legends begin. Look up from the water, and the peaks of the Scottish Highlands rise up around it, shielding its secrets from the outside world. It's easy to imagine with this awe-inspiring landscape around you that human feet have never trod here, that this is a truly wild place. But of course, people have been here a long time. This very building is not only the official home of the Loch Ness project, but also, in 1933, was at the epicenter of the Loch Ness phenomenon. This village, Drumnadrochit, is over 200 years old, and nearby Castle Urquhart has stood watch, in one shape or another, for over 1,400 years. Humans aren't the only creatures to call Loch Ness home. Golden eagles hunt in the skies overhead, Highland cattle graze on the hillsides, and seals sometimes swim into the shallows of the loch. Are they alone there? Who can say? But we do know that the shallows are only the beginning. The loch is vast. 23 miles long and 754 feet deep. All the water in all the lakes in England and Wales wouldn't fill it. A 60-story tower would be submerged into its depths. and its origins go back 500 million years to a very different world. A world where Scotland was south of the equator. As the continents drifted, the rocks you're standing on now ploughed into Europe. They moved no faster than their fingernail grows, but the collision was enough to crumple the Caledonian mountains up to the height of today's Himalayas. Over 380 million years, this landmass drifted north. 6,000 slow miles. What would become Scotland now crossed the equator, where the warm, wet climate saw amphibians make their homes in its swamps. It was crushed into the dry heart of the supercontinent Pangaea, where those amphibians which evolved into reptiles would come to rule the world, both land and sea. But the age of the dinosaurs came to an end. Their world shattered 65 million years ago. Still, the continents crept north. When life re-emerged, it was into a colder Scotland. One where warm blood was the secret of success. It was about to get even colder. At last, the huge land masses clustered around the North Pole. They blocked the great ocean currents that had kept the northern seas warm. Now, when snow fell, instead of melting, it settled and settled. Crushed into ice by its own weight. The glaciers over Scotland were over a half-mile deep, and they ground their way down the Great Glen. 10,000 years ago, a thaw came. As the ice of the glaciers melted, it poured into streams and burns, flowed down from the hills and flooded the Great Glen, turning it into a chain of lochs. Life returned once again to these hills and valleys, and eventually, the first humans to see this part of the world arrived at Loch Ness. Being human, they told stories. Stories that would grow and evolve to become myths and legends. Legends like the Loch. 500 million years in the making. Which just means
So
you don't
many
really know when
movies.
something can happen. So let's say about 10,000 years ago, the Ice Age thawed and people settled in Scotland's Great Glen. Around their campfires, human beings like us tried to make sense of the world they lived in by telling stories. And this place inspires stories. The waters of Loch Ness are indeed a mirror for the human imagination. There's a wildness in the Scottish landscape that cries out to that imagination for tales of wonder and mystery. Like the one that made Loch Ness a legend in its own right, and a name known the world over. The world has monsters aplenty, of course. Every country has its strange stories, from Sasquatch to Yeti to Kraken. But the Scottish Highlands are home to the most famous of them all. Our very own Loch Ness monster, Nessie. Oh, there are those who'll tell you that Nessie is a Scandinavian, a memory of the prow of a Viking longship coming out the mists. And who's to say they're wrong? And again, who's to say they're right? Because if you listen to the old stories, Scotland is home to more creatures of wonder than one. Fairy tales? Maybe. Scottish fairies are wilder than most. We call them the Shee, and there's one guarding every well, every waterfall, and every loch. There's the Gilly-Doo, the dark boy cloaked in moss and leaves coming out at night to hunt those who trespass in his woodland lair. And then there's the Kelpie, in Gaelic, Ikushkia, or water horse, an enduring legend this one, and found all over Scotland. A majestic horse with, strange thing, water weeds tangled in its mane, tame and friendly to passers-by, until they climb on its back and are dragged down into the depths as it dives back to its watery home. Could they be in Loch Ness? Is that where the legend of our own creature began? Or was it the Boobray, a shape-shifting creature, sometimes a galloping water horse like the Kelpie, but more often a huge bird, bigger than 17 eagles with a terrifying spike of a beak, like a fish-eating diving bird. And if you look at those long, curved necks and hunched backs, wow, familiar, aren't they? Then again, what about the Selkie, the Seg, the maid of the waves, Scotland's very own mermaid? Under that seal disguise, there's a beautiful woman, ready to lure men to their death in the sea. Well, seals are certainly one explanation for the legend of Nessie. Those smooth backs arching out of the water do look like the humps of a sea serpent. Nothing smooth about the shellycoat, mind you. A prankster in a coat of seashells, clattering and jangling and screeching along the shore, pretending to drown, then vanishing with a laugh when people get close enough to rescue it. But our fairy tale starts to crystallise when a real live saint arrives at the loch. Saint Columba in the 6th century. He came from Ireland to convert the northern Picts to Christianity. He had to cross the River Ness, where he found locals burying a man most savagely bitten by a water beast. One of his followers swam across for a go. Up rose a beast, roaring, ready to devour the poor monk. Until Columba, with staff in hand and the power of God, cried out in a voice louder than the beast's, "Go no further, nor touch the man. Go back," and sent it back to the depths whence it came. Or so the legend says. The first documented sighting of Nessie, and the last one to be documented for quite a while. About 1,500 years, in fact. And then, in 1933, in this very hotel, the legend got a new lease of life.
I'm Gordon, the barman here. And that's Alice Campbell, the water.
And now, we find ourselves in the Drumnadrochit Hotel Bar, often called the Drum, on a quiet day.
They are so
in
lazy that there's no
1933.
hero who
Very quiet.
Did you hear something?
That was until the arrival home of the hotel manageress, Mrs. Alvin Mackay.
You're all right, Mrs. Mackay. You look like you've seen a ghost.
Alex, I've seen it, plain as day.
Mrs. Mackay, what exactly is it that you've seen?
John and I were driving back from Inverness, and I happened to be looking at the loch, and then the water started to bubble and boil, and I saw it.
What did you see?
I saw the beast, Gordon, and don't you mock me, I know what I saw.
What did it look like? How big was it?
Black and wet and huge, Alex. It was like a whale. It was, with the water rolling off it. It swam in a great circle for a minute or so, stirring up waves big enough for a paddle steamer, and then down it went in a great mass of foam.
Oh, you certainly had a fright there, Mrs. Mackay. Yet, now that I think of it, My granddad used to talk about James Cameron, the old gamekeeper. Well, he busted through. White as a sheet, just like you, Mrs. McKay. Come from the loch side as well. Said he'd been fishing with huge animals surfaced by his boat.
Aye, and old Sandy McDonald rambling on about a huge salamander.
I was fairly sure the salamander had crawled out of a bottle, but
Who you hear?
By 1860, if you had asked anyone local, you'd have heard all about something in the loch. Plenty of tourists came up to the loch on steamers, but you never heard anything from them. It was a local mystery.
well now, I think some sort of public warning would be in order.
I didn't keep my name out of it, Mr. Campbell, and my hotel.
Aye, good point. Reputations to consider in that. Still, we have a quiet word with the Inverness Coon about this monster.
And now it's a monster. Word was bound to spread.
Here, did I ever tell you about that Kaale? He's up from London on holiday. George Spicer. Said something ran across the road like a dragon or some sort of prehistoric animal with a great long neck.
I think man and his dog's got a story about a monster now. And no two alike. I even heard it on the radio.
The latest from the loch. The monster raised his head again, reporting live from Loch Ness this afternoon.
I've seen it! Well, not me, but my aunt. She saw it! We saw this great net coming out of the water.
There's a £20,000 reward for anyone who can catch it. We saw it through a telescope for 10 minutes.
I saw 2 hands. I think. I saw 4.
I was ran over with a motorcycle. It was like a seal crossed with a plesiosaur.
Everybody's a cryptozoologist now.
I made this drawing of the monster I saw. A great sinuous humps. It was like an eel. Yeah, an eel. Like a huge
Oh, come on now, eels don't grow that big. No, I've seen it myself now, and it has a definite neck. 6 feet of neck.
Welcome to the birth of a modern legend. A monster that looks like a plesiosaur.
Large whiskey and soda, please. Oh, Mr. Wetherill, is it? The big game hunter up from London. You found anything yet?
Found anything? Found it. Footprints. Footprints in the mud by the loch. And from the size of them, they can only belong to a monster.
Mercy! Oh, we'll be eaten in our beds!
Mrs. Mackay could sleep soundly though. The Natural History Museum took a look at Marmaduke Wetherell's footprints.
Oh, you left a couple of things in your room when you checked out, Mr. Wetherill, including your slightly muddy souvenir African foot.
And where's their whiskey?
And right up. Yeah. He's done one. What a character, eh? We've done all sorts up here with our cameras and contraptions. A lot of photos popping up as well. You've got Hugh Gray's photo.
And then, of course, this iconic photo taken by the surgeon Robert Wilson, famously known as the surgeon's photo.
Oh, Rackham Stewart up at the forest.
He says he saw those humps out on the loch too.
And don't forget Peter McNabb's picture.
Then there's Tim Dinsdale, big respectable aero engineer. Came all the way up here after reading about the use of picture magazine. Speaking of the devil, evening, Tim.
Gordon, I managed to catch the first film of the monster.
I'll be famous. Maybe even make up TV one day. Here, did you get anywhere with Sir Peter Scott?
Oh yes, he and David James MP are going to set up a Loch Ness Phenomena Investigation Bureau.
For Sir Peter.
Well, thank you. But if they ever find that creature, I want it properly protected. The first step is to give it a proper scientific name. Nessie robertatus, the diamond fin wonder of the Ness.
Very good for business, this Loch Ness phenomenon investigation. Staring out at the loch all day, and in our bar all week.
There was even a sighting by a retired policeman, Detective Sergeant Ian Kaale.
I definitely saw something right at the surface out there. Big, black, like a whale. It dived, and then came up again. Maybe 250, 300 yards from us.
Everyone, come quick! You won't believe what I just saw. This way, follow me!
Chings. What have I started? Fuck. I'm starting to think I should have just kept it to myself.
Oh no, I think it's a teeny tiny wee bit too late for that, Mrs. McCann. Cheer up! It's not every day you become a legend maker. You can just see it now. Drummer Jockey Hotel. Birthplace of the legend of Oxford England. I'll turn this place into a museum one day. Can't you imagine?
I suppose it'll bring in some more customers. As long as they tourists didn't cause any trouble or behave themselves.
And buy a drink or two. That Loch Ness monster.
And as you can see, things will never be the same again.
Time flies, eh?
This calls for some in-depth research, and I mean in-depth. We are going to take a dive into the loch to see what might really be going on out there.
That's your cue to skedaddle. Bar's closed. The lock-in's in here. On you go now.
It's 380 million years old. Old enough to be our own Jurassic Park. If it's wildlife you want, the loch has plenty. Salmon, eels, otters, even the odd adventurous seal. Have any of these creatures made a swim on the bar as Nessie over the years? Maybe. But Loch Ness hides its secrets deep. So there's only one way to explore. We're going to see what lies under the surface. As we said, that's a lot of water. 23 miles long, with walls of rock and clay which plunge steeply into a 754-foot deep abyss, deep enough to engulf Edinburgh Castle twice. The loch is murky, with dark, peaty water as brown as tea, even up at the surface. Get deep enough and no light penetrates, which means we'll need some digital magic to clear the water, to see what's down here. Ah, that's better. Down we go. To about 130 feet, or 40 meters. The water here splits into layers at different temperatures. The loch water above is warmer, heated by the sun, floating on cold water below. These layers move independently of each other. The line between the layers is called a thermocline, and we're hovering on one right now. Wind on the surface of the loch pushes the warm water to the far end of the loch, where it forces the thermocline down. But when the wind drops, all the water starts rolling to and fro from one end of the loch to the other, and keeps going for weeks, creating huge underwater waves known as a seiche, forming a surface current that can carry logs and other debris along against the wind. Could that explain the many sightings of humps? No time to solve that now. Down we go again. And it's cold down here. Only 5 degrees or so below. But never colder. The loch never freezes. The cold water sinks and warmer water rises from the depth to replace it. And we're right over the greatest depth now, near Urquhart Castle. Do you get the feeling something's watching us? We are not alone. There are monsters down here. Micro monsters. Check these beasties out. Some of these species have been here since the Ice Age. Could something even older have survived? Well, no light means no plants, and without plants, there's not much of a food chain for a monster. But there are fish. Here's another secret. Decades worth of wrecks at the bottom. A Zulu-class fishing boat from the 1900s. John Cobb's 1950s water speed record boat, Crusader. They even recovered a Wellington bomber from World War II. All these turned up on sonar screens. So what else might still be lurking down here? The hunt began in earnest over 50 years ago. A decades-long vigil with new technologies penetrating the depths. Explorers like Adrian Shine, founder of the Loch Ness Project, who we'll meet later, have waited and watched and scanned the depths. Oh, what's that? Could it be? Oh, no, sorry. It's just a log. This tree stump here actually caused a commotion when an underwater camera caught it back in the 70s. It does look like something else. And what's this? Also taken around the same time. Another log? We've tried other ways to find answers. Here's Adrian squeezing into the machine. The tiny one-man observation pod he tested in the clearer waters of Loch Morar. 2 cramped, freezing hours at a time. The Pequod up there investigated Loch waters too. And the Viperfish, the one-man yellow submarine you saw outside, built by Dan Taylor, an American submarine enthusiast, took to the depths of Loch Ness. One account of his voyage gives us something to consider. On reaching the Loch floor bed, Dan found himself within a silt storm that sent it in a 180-degree spin. Dan was unable to identify what caused this. He had indeed entered uncharted waters. A close call that he could never explain. I think we best move on. Let's see what else we can learn from the real scientific research into Loch Ness, undertaken by Adrian and others.
The fieldwork really began in the 60s, when Sir Peter Scott and David James set up the Loch Ness Phenomena Investigation Bureau. This is one of their big telephoto lenses on a 35mm movie camera. They could see a beach ball a mile away with one of these. For 10 summers, they spread their teams out in the calms they called Nessie weather, ultimately achieving 90% coverage of the loch. This was their best film, but they collected over 300 sighting reports as well.
Well, those reported sightings seemed pretty impressive to me, but I'm guessing you wouldn't say they're definitive.
They certainly defined the popular Nessie. There was the classic multi-hump sea serpent, and the long-necked Jurassic plesiosaur, the medium monster.
Do you think we see what we want to see?
Perhaps more what we are supposed to see. That can change how we interpret the things we see. So the investigators found that the sea serpent reports were boat wakes, and the long-necked ones were usually water birds, which can look much bigger on calm water when there's no pattern of waves to judge size. And then there were those branches you mentioned, apparently swimming upwind.
So what about plesiosaurs? I so wanted to be a plesiosaur. That would get my vote. And that's what so many people to this day believe in.
We haven't looked for one of those for a very long time, and the water's too cold for reptiles anyway. And that famous surgeon's plesiosaur photo, we found that was a model on a toy submarine. Marmaduke well again. Hope's photos have become a bit of a sport.
Yeah, but Adrian, there was no evidence of the giant squid or the coelacanth when they turned up, so we could still find Nessie.
Yes, but what sort? Mammals would cope better with the cold. but they eat a lot more than reptiles, and as you said, the low productivity doesn't make much of a menu for a herd of monsters. The odd seal does get in, but not whales, would it be obvious?
What about fish?
Ah, the modern fish theories. I call them the big three. None of them could be breeding because nobody's caught any little ones. Migratory sturgeon blundering in from the sea wouldn't find a spawning partner, and the water's too cold for artificially introduced catfish to breed. And overgrown eels wouldn't leave as normal to breed at sea. Now fish wouldn't have to surface at all, and that's why the Loch Ness investigators tried to go underwater with submarines and cameras. But the brown water led to errors like that gargoyle tree stump, and proved too much of a temptation to draw fake outlines on silty pictures.
I've heard that's what Robert Rhines, an American researcher, did to this famous flipper picture, using a time-lapse camera that you can see on the smaller screen here. It does look like a Nessie flipper to me. Wait, let's see what the camera trap captures today. Ah, you're the catch of the day now, but let's not keep that one. So what's next? I see activity. Are they busy with a sonar scan now? Looks like the TARDIS to me.
We did make 40 strong contacts, but the thermoclines and Loch's steep sides made problems for the scanning sonar's horizontal beam. So for Operation Deep Scan in 1987, we had a whole fleet beaming a sonar curtain straight down. You know where you are with the beams then. It had the smell of decision about it. We did get 3 deep contacts, and we're still not quite sure about them.
It was said they were bigger than a shark, but smaller than a whale, but they remain to this day unexplained. I heard that you did find a monster 9 meters long.
Yes, quite impressive, and it had a long neck. We used Muni, this autonomous vehicle. The monster was a lost film prop from 1969. Our contacts still happen.
I saw something in the media about a more recent sonar contact reporting an object the size of a transit van. I've heard there's no explanation for that.
The waters of the loch are pretty interesting too. I guess it tells us so much about our environment.
Yes, it does. But it's also basic to thinking about monsters, especially if there's so little food for the resident population of them. In the 1990s, our Rosetta project drilled 6 metre long cords from the Loch's sediment. History like an open book in every band and age. From the melting of the ice to radioactive isotopes from nuclear bombs and Chernobyl, it's all there in a muddy time capsule.
Did you check for monster DNA?
Yes, we sampled with Professor Gemmel's team and found DNA from 3,000 species. No reptiles, obviously. And not enough DNA from otters and cormorants, which we know visit the loch. But we couldn't prove or disprove the modern fish theories either. Occasional sturgeon would be away at sea for virtually all of the time. Any surviving catfish introduced by the Victorians might not leave enough DNA. And as for common eels becoming huge, well, their DNA would be exactly the same as all the other eels. So the fun remains.
The search for the truth continues today. From Steve Feltham on Doors Beach, to Alan McKenna and Loch Ness exploration, to boat skippers travelling the loch every day. Still unsure? Well, so long as there's no firm scientific evidence to disprove the monster, the possibility still remains open. And speaking of the search for truth, I think it's now time to gather in the hotel lounge to summarise the story. We can debate what we've heard so far and make up our own. You help us to sum up the evidence and add in more if you have it.
I was wondering what happened to you lot. Soon it'll be your turn to know what you think.
Do you see Nessie? Do you see nonsense? Or do you still see possibilities?
Let's take a look at some of the evidence. There are so many credible witnesses, both past and present, who all swear they actually saw something. Let's call a few up. Luckily, I've got one that. St. Columba vanquished the Waterers 15 centuries ago with the how did it go this way?
The plants were around having a pretty serious look then.
Mrs. Ellen Mackay, the manager of this very hotel, a highly respectable woman, saw something on the lock with her very own eyes.
She described it as a beast, and it made Loch Ness famous all over the world, even though she didn't want the publicity.
Tim Dinsdale gave up everything to his search for the monster.
He actually filmed something and genuinely believed it was an animal.
Let's hear from self-proclaimed Nessie and Steve Belford.
The one thing that I've seen that is completely unexplained here at Loch Ness for me happened in the first year of me being here full time. When I was at Fort Augustus, at the other end of Loch Ness, and imagine the waves are about this high, coming from my right across to my left, and something shot through against those waves like a torpedo goes through the water. All I could see was the white water as it hit each oncoming wave, so it'd just be a splash of water.
Về cơ bản là không có ai, cũng chưa có ai có thể chứng minh được sự tồn tại của quái vật, cũng như là không có dấu vết lịch sử gì có thể chứng minh được sự tồn tại của quái vật. Còn theo tôi thì đây là một câu chuyện rất là bộc phét. Tôi nghĩ là câu chuyện quái vật hồ Loch Ness nên được cho vào kiểu chuyện cổ tích hay truyền thuyết gì đấy. Ngoài chứ còn tôi nghĩ là đây có thể là một âm mưu của ông chủ khách sạn để có thể thu hút thêm khách đến khách sạn của mình. Video đến đây là hết. Nếu như các bạn đến đây thì có lẽ hồ Loch Ness nó sẽ phù hợp hơn cho những người có thể lái xe ô tô quanh hồ, hoặc cũng có những hoạt động như hiking hay là đi thuyền trên mặt hồ. Còn lại thì xung quanh hồ cũng không có gì nhiều.